What if the wise men had kept walking after seeing Jesus? What if they hadn't returned home? What if they hadn't gone back to their kingdoms with stories to tell and gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, but simply kept walking, silently, faithfully, endlessly? What if Bethlehem wasn't the end of their journey but merely a glimpse, a spark of something far larger, farther, deeper? Picture this. 3 travelers with worn robes and eyes that have seen the divine, standing outside a quiet stable. They've just witnessed the moment where God and humanity touched, and instead of stopping, they look back up at the night sky and keep walking. But now, they're no longer following a star. They're following a mystery. For centuries, we've thought of the wise men as figures who completed a mission. They saw a sign, followed it, found the child, and went home fulfilled. But what if they didn't? What if that moment changed them so deeply that the idea of returning felt impossible? What happens to a person who sees the light made flesh and instead of feeling satisfied feels even hungrier? Imagine the night sky over Judea. The stars hum in silence. Sirius, the brightest star in the sky, pierces the eastern darkness. And these 3 men decide, we must keep going. Let's get literal for a moment. If they walked directly towards Sirius at a constant pace, ignoring terrain, borders, or oceans, they would trace slow spirals across the surface of the Earth. Their movement, a sacred dance between the rotation of Earth and the constancy of stars. Eventually, they'd find themselves near the South Pole. Walking in endless circles, 30 kilometers wide, chasing a star that never moves, never lands. A frozen pilgrimage in silence. No temples, no crowds, no destination, just faith. But let's be more realistic. Suppose the wise men only walked at night. They paused during the day, allowed their feet to rest, their minds to wonder, their hearts to listen. Still, their journey would pull them through unfamiliar lands, regions we now call Egypt, Sudan, Botswana. They'd cross deserts, forests, rivers, until years later they'd vanish into the darkness of the southern hemisphere, where the stars change names and time moves just a little slower. Now, let's switch stars. What if instead of Sirius they chose Venus? Venus, the morning star, symbol of renewal, prophecy, and cosmic beauty, the second brightest object in our sky after the sun. But here's the thing. Venus moves. It shifts against the background of stars. It appears in the morning, then in the evening, then vanishes. It confuses even astronomers sometimes. Following Venus, the Magi would trace strange, elegant paths, loops, reversals, and wild turns. In October, they might find themselves circling near the Arctic, where the sun and Venus cling to the horizon, rising and setting, nudging the Magi into a hypnotic month-long spiral. Some would call it madness, others, devotion. Science tells us it's impossible to literally follow a star. The Earth rotates, stars rise and set. The terrain is unpredictable. And the human body? It needs rest, shelter, food. And yet, don't we all follow stars? A dream, a purpose, a whisper in the soul that says, go that way. This isn't just about astronomy. It's about persistence, spiritual gravity. The idea that after witnessing something divine, you don't stop. You crave more. You realize the epiphany wasn't the destination. It was the invitation. What if the wise men understood that? What if they saw the baby, and instead of saying, we've arrived, they said, this is where it begins? What would our world be like if more people walked on? After seeing the miracle? If they didn't package it into doctrine, didn't freeze it in stained glass, didn't turn it into a souvenir, but instead kept walking. Perhaps we need more pilgrims and fewer monuments. It's a haunting image, isn't it? 3 men in perpetual motion, their sandals worn thin, their eyes fixed on something they know they'll never reach. Not because they believe they'll arrive, but because they must move. Not to find an answer, but to honor the mystery. To walk forever may seem pointless. But electrons orbit endlessly. Planets never stop circling their stars. Nothing in the universe truly rests. Everything is in motion. Maybe faith isn't stillness. Maybe faith is movement. Now imagine, the Magi don't die. They keep walking through time. They cross the fall of Rome, the rise of cities, the building of cathedrals. They step onto ships. They cross oceans. They arrive in the Americas before maps even exist. They follow railways, satellites, neon signs, even the cold glow of a digital sky. Every generation sees them and wonders, who are these men? What are they looking for? You may say, this is fantasy. It's poetic nonsense. But isn't that where truth often hides? This isn't a story about men in robes. It's about us. It's about what we do after our moment of clarity, after the light breaks through, after the voice whispers, "He is here." Do we stop, build a church, write a book, or do we keep walking? There's something deeply symbolic here, because the farther they walk, the more the stars change, the constellations shift, the paths become strange, and maybe, just maybe, what they were following was never outside them. Maybe the light was inside all along. Maybe the star was just the spark that lit the flame. Today, if you feel lost, if your path makes no sense, if it feels like you're walking in circles, perhaps you're just following your own star. Maybe you too have seen something sacred, and now you can't go back. And that's okay. Some of us were never meant to return. Some of us were made to walk. So before you click away, take a breath. Think about this. What if your longing isn't a flaw, but a compass? What if your doubt is the doorway to your deeper journey? If this video sparked something inside you, leave a comment below. Share it with someone who's walking their own mysterious path. And subscribe for more reflections that blend science, wonder, and soul. And remember, sometimes the most sacred act is to keep walking.